Hey, what's up, everybody? My name is Chris Martinez, and I am the host of Operation Agency Freedom. And of course, in my day job, I am also the CEO and founder of Bloom, where we work with marketing agencies and provide management consulting and technology to increase profit, maximize your agency's value, unlock your potential, and achieve an 8-figure exit. Today, I have Nick Carpenter on the show. He is the founder of the Legion of Loan Officers and one of the most sought out trainers and thought leaders in the mortgage industry. And that is a tough industry. He's also an Eagle Scout, an Air Force veteran, and the author of the official Loan Officer Strategy Guide. Welcome to the show, Nick. How are you doing, my friend?
Yeah, thank you so much, Chris. I'm doing good. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. And you're in Colorado. I forgot the name of the city.
Yeah, I'm in a little town called Crestone, Colorado, down in South Central, out in the middle of, basically out in the middle of nowhere, Colorado, just like an hour north of the New Mexico border.
Oh, wow. Okay. And you're originally from Texas. I do want to point that out because you do have the Texas accent. So you're originally from Arlington, you said, or just around Arlington?
Yep, that's correct.
Right on, man. Well, I'm excited to talk to you because you are in mortgage. That's the niche that you've decided on, or I don't know if it decided on you. And to be honest with you, anything related to real estate, when I was running my agency, I ran away. I didn't want to have anything to do with real estate. Not to say that if you're listening to this and you're in real estate that you're going to fail or whatever. Obviously, Nick is proof that you can be successful in that industry. But the first thing that I want to talk about with you is, how did you find your way into that vertical? I know you have some background there too, but it's a tough industry to get into. So let's start there.
Yeah, I grew up as a Navy brat, and so, kind of moving around my whole life was sort of in my blood. Ended up going in the Air Force, and while I was in the Air Force, I bought my first house, and
Nice.
it actually was, we picked out the lot and built the house with a builder and the whole process when I was stationed in North Carolina. And when I was deciding to get out of the Air Force, becoming a realtor just seemed like a natural, process or, next step, just because how much I loved the whole process on buying the house, and I was doing it for myself. And so I actually became a realtor in 2005. And, really, I fell in love with the marketing side of real estate, not necessarily the dealing with buyers and sellers part. And, as a realtor, you have to deal with the buyers and sellers to make the money,
Right.
So sometimes there was sometimes where it wasn't working out as good as it could. So I started just doing different things where I was referring the business. I ended up getting recruited by a mortgage company to come in, basically like set up a corporate marketing department for them. At the time, they had 50 branches or so around the country, but they didn't actually have a marketing team at their corporate office in Dallas. And so that's how I kind of got into the mortgage business. And through that process, I kind of realized, you can teach real estate marketing, or a lot of the same things that are beneficial and valuable to a realtor, you can teach it to a loan officer. And now they have that skill and knowledge to go out and be able to help realtors. And so, kind of through that ripple effect. But yeah, I ended up leaving the mortgage company, my last corporate job in 2014, and opened my agency, and kind of, it's been sort of a fail forward, over the last 10 years. And but yeah, it's been awesome. But yes, that's kind of how I ended up in the mortgage industry.
Okay, so 2014, 10 years ago, obviously, in the real world, that's like a century ago. We didn't have a lot of the tools back then, because I started my agency in 2012, and we didn't have a lot of the tools that we have today. It was a lot harder to run the agency. I didn't even call myself an agency, actually, when I started. It was a very different time. What have been some of the things that have allowed you to continue? And actually, here's another funny story. When I started my agency, one of the first things I did is I joined a BNI group. I don't know if you're familiar with BNI. It's like a
Oh yeah.
referral organization. It's all around the world. So I'd go to my local BNI group, and there were, I don't know, I want to say like 10 other marketing agencies that started the same year. And as far as I know, nobody is still in that industry. They're all gone. Like they went out of business, or they closed up, or a partnership didn't work out. None of them are still in this industry. So with that being said, what are some of the things that have helped you to survive? Because I feel like that's kind of half the battle.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. What's interesting is I started running Facebook ads in 2012, was the first time that I ever spent money on Facebook. And luckily back then, because the position I was in, I had access to a lot of mortgage people, and I would basically convince these guys to give me, a few $100 a month to test with. And so really I was able to, I was lucky enough that, I had a couple $1,000s a month to to test Facebook ads and just kind
Mhm.
of, figure things out. And, I think you kind of pointed on some things. One is I've never had an actual partnership in my business. I work with my brother
Mhm.
and, in different capacities. And, I've got people that work for me. I've done partnerships, small things, but I don't, some of that stuff I think I'm lucky to avoid, I guess in that way, just because I like having my own, just being my own decision maker and,
Yeah.
not having to sometimes the things that come along with that. But so one I think is really just sticking with what works. I mean, the truth, is in marketing, there's a million options out here. And, people, even sometimes my clients, they constantly are coming to me with, hey, what about this platform or this idea? Or I saw this ad, and different things. And, it's not that we don't test and try to evolve. I mean, obviously we've had to evolve multiple times over the years in order to still exist, but also having a core of what works for us. And, until it stops working, I'm just going to keep sticking with what I know works versus trying to become, not an expert on other things that I'm then trying to offer to people as a service or as advice. So I like that what I tell people to do, I do myself,
Mhm.
and that, I know everything. I know it works because we just have enough proof of concept versus, I don't know, I think some people, like I haven't really dived into TikTok too much yet, in
Mhm.
terms of ads and some of that stuff, even though people ask me about it almost every day. And it's not that I'm sure TikTok would be amazing. I probably could have create a big business off of figuring out TikTok ads, but also I'm just really happy with what's working for us. And so I think in some ways, not chasing the shiny object has really benefited us, where I see a lot of other agencies like every year, changing their offer
Yeah.
and switching to what there is. Or like you said, a lot of people come in, especially in the mortgage space, people will come in, they'll put an offer out, make $1 million or whatever, on an offer that they put out, and then they just leave, or the
Yeah.
whole program shuts down. And so I've seen a lot of that, over the years. But yeah, I think like be willing to evolve, but also like we stay true to our core of what we know works and what we want to be known for.
Yeah, and what works for you is very, very interesting as well. Like one of the reasons why when I had my agency that I just ran the other direction when I would meet real estate agents and mortgage brokers and things like that, it's because typically their budgets are really, really small. Like even the brokerage itself, they were really tight with the money. It was just hard. And then I think also because it's such a relationship based sale, like running ads for them. It's like they all wanted like a website. They didn't really want to pay for it. They wanted some sort of branding, so maybe some retargeting or something. But I mean, these are truly they're the majority of real estate agents, and I would just argue as well, like mortgage folks, is they're like solopreneurs and just kind of smaller, right? And it's just hard to do marketing for those folks. But you have a really, really interesting offer. So why don't you tell us about kind of what it is that you do with your agency and how that's helped you to be successful?
Yeah, so typically people come to us because they feel like they want to get more leads. Often the desire to get leads is usually around some control aspect, whether that's regaining control from the realtors that they
Hmm.
feel are at the top of the pyramid, because they're having to pay for Zillow.com or Realtor.com leads or partnerships with an agent in order to get the business, or because they've been paying an agency for a long time that, I mean, obviously I've got a ton of friends that run agencies, and most of them in my space, they're anywhere from, 1,000 on the low end, probably more like 2,500 or
Yeah.
3,000, depending on what they're doing per month. And so if you look at the output of 36,000 a year just for an agency retainer, oftentimes people, they want to understand how to do it themselves. And
Okay.
so, typically people come to me because that's how they want to get leads. So in my
Hmm.
offer, number one is we teach them how to get leads. So we teach them how to run Facebook ads, how to run Instagram ads. We have advanced training on YouTube ads, but the truth is 95% of people never get there. YouTube obviously has a much higher barrier to entry because you actually have to like make a video and, some of that stuff. So
Right.
but we teach them how to run, consumer direct stuff up front. That is, again, a huge power piece. They can get their money back from realtors. We can oftentimes get realtors to start giving us money because we can show them how we can create a better lead flow than other options out there.
Okay.
Number two is we show them how to, like what we call the local celebrity builder. So we teach retargeting, using kind of like a multi-prong approach of a few dollars a day, running a few different ads to just build a relationship with people that have engaged with them online in some way.
Hmm.
Again, I think it's awesome that loan officer can learn how to do that and then also be able to take that knowledge to realtors and show the realtors how to do the same thing. So that's been really cool from a relationship side. And then the third thing is how to run a once a month marketing class for realtors, that the topic is something they really care about, not a mortgage topic that they don't really care about. Like that's what a loan officer is for, but also what most lenders are teaching is the FHA updates for 2024, random stuff that people don't even really care about. People just want to make money. I mean, so we just teach them topics that's going to help them make money, be more recognized online, generate their own business, that type of stuff. And then we have a really cool process behind the live event to get the first deal from a realtor, because that's the hardest one to get. And then, after that, like it's really up to the clients to do what they do and provide an amazing experience. And then usually they can get more business. But yeah, those are the high level 3 problems we solve for people: get more leads, be more recognized in your local market, and then use a once a month live event to convert more referral partners.
I love that, man. And one of the reasons why I love that, I'm taking notes as you're talking. One of the reasons why I love that is because I've said this for more than a year, that marketing is evolving. Like what we do is evolving. The industry is changing. And one of the things that I'm seeing coming is that, like if you look at an org chart, right, they usually have marketing and then they have sales. And marketing is supposed to generate the leads and sales is supposed to convert those leads into paying customers. That gap is closing. And so that's one of the things that I love, is that you are closing one of those gaps, right? You're still doing lead generation, but it's in a different way. The other thing that I love is the name that you gave me. I don't know if this is formal or you just said it, local celebrity builder. For everybody who's listening, your products should have a kick-ass name like that. Local celebrity builder. Like who doesn't want to be a local celebrity? It's such an amazing name for the product. That automatically is going to attract people. I'm guessing that was intentional, right? The way that you named that.
And actually, it's interesting. Is like it's the second name we came up with, because the first one was the Cerberus guard dog method. This whole idea originated off of a guy named Dennis Yu,
I know
who
Dennis.
runs a
Yep.
company called Blitz Metrics.
Yep.
So Dennis teaches the $1 a day strategy.
Yep.
And we basically took and created our own version of that for lenders. And so it's a 3-prong approach, 3 ads, $1 a day each, to stay in front of people. And when it reminded me of Cerberus, if familiar with Greek mythology, right? It was Hades, pet, basically. He was like the guardian of the underworld. And so that once somebody got banished to the underworld, they could never escape. And for me, I love retargeting, because, once somebody's in that audience, it's like they're pretty much stuck.
Right.
So, it's almost like saying, so that's where originally the idea of the whole like Cerberus guard dog method came from. But on spec, it's hard to understand exactly what that is, right? If you just hearing the name, you got to go into some explanation of it. It was like a good curiosity piquer, because you're like, oh, what's the Cerberus method, whatever. But yeah, obviously local celebrity builder, much easier to understand. Everybody gets it right up front. So
yeah, for sure. The other thing that I love is that you help them get their first deal. And this is something that every agency should think about, because when your client comes to you, part of the reason why they're hiring you is for the certainty. They believe that you have a process to help them get the results. And you guys have an intentional process of helping those clients to get their first deal, which is really, really important. I think everybody kind of has to do this. This is another way that the gap between marketing and sales is shrinking. You have to put more money in their bank account, otherwise they're not going to hire you again, or they're going to cancel their retainer and they're going to badmouth you. So walk us through a little bit. You don't have to give us all the details, because I don't want you to spill your secret sauce, but like, how do you ensure that they're getting their first deal?
Yeah. So, okay. In 2021, I partnered with a guy. We watched the show Undercover Billionaire. Have you seen that show, Undercover Billionaire?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
For sure.
So I love the concept. I was talking with a mortgage guy one day in 2021, and he's like, what could a lender do if we did the same thing? Like, if we put a lender in a new city, in their first 90 days, like, do we think they could do $2 million of business? I'm like, man, that is a great concept. So this guy was willing to leave his family and move 4 hours to a new city. We hired a production company and we shot a show called the Relo LO Show. So it's available. Like you can go see it at reloloshow.com and or on YouTube, just search Relo LO Show. And anybody in the mortgage industry especially should watch it. But it's basically a 6-part, 20, 30-minute episodes of Casey. Like each episode is 2 weeks, following him for 90 days. And a spoiler, we crushed the 2 million. And, but what we figured out during that time, because we had everything recorded and we were able to kind of go back and really look at stuff, is it takes about 4 hours with a new referral, with a new realtor that you haven't done business with yet, 4 hours in person in order to get the first deal, as
Got
on
it.
an average for us. So the system, like kind of the way I walk lenders through in the very beginning, is to get the 4 hours, right? So which is why, we want to bring people to a live event. That's going to be 60 to 90 minutes. Then we can meet with them on Zoom for 15 or 30 minutes and build some relationship. Then we can go to one-on-one meetings in person and have, we kind of show them how to do some stuff with like Google reviews, just like little small, I call them party tricks,
Yeah.
right? Little small party tricks that they can go to a realtor with, and the realtor's like, that's cool, And eventually, the whole goal being is to create a lopsided relationship, because we know that nobody wants to be in a lopsided relationship. And if we can force the feeling of that, then the realtor starts looking for a deal for us. Subconsciously, they're like, I need to give Chris something back. He's been doing so much for me.
Yep. That law of reciprocity, right?
Yeah,
That
and
starts to kick in.
with the relationship we have as a realtor to a lender, that's like the only thing that makes sense, is to give us a client. So that's what a lot of times the first client that we do with a partner isn't coming from Facebook ads or some of these other things that we're doing. It actually comes from a direct referral from the realtor that they got from an open house lead or a sign call or something that came from somewhere else in their business. So I just basically, we kind of coach / cattle prod the loan officers along, that process to basically get the time and then to get that referral, because it, like, man, it creates an incredible amount of confidence and belief in us, in themselves, in the process when they actually get the first deal,
For sure. I love that metric, right? I've literally never heard anybody say that else before. I've never heard anybody else say this, that you need 4 hours of relationship building. I'm going to give you a term. I'm going to call them trust tokens. You need 4 hours of depositing trust tokens into this relationship, and then you're going to be able to get that first deal. You're going to get that first referral, right? That is really, really important. I'm thinking about the relationships that I'm trying to develop with other folks, and I'm like, this is really, really interesting. I think I got to figure out that metric for myself, and just being more conscious of the hours or the trust tokens that I need to start depositing in other folks. So that's brilliant. So the last thing that I want you to expand about is the events, because this to me is kind of like your golden goose, right? Like, you're teaching your loan officers how to run these events, which in and of itself is a trust token opportunity, right? How did you come up with that? Because it's so incredibly smart.
Yeah, that, you know what? I think it was just basically stumbling on it on accident when I was at the, working at the corporate office for a mortgage company and trying to figure out, how do I help the loan officers around the country build their business?
Okay.
Especially like that was I got hired in 2011 there. And I didn't really know how to do that. I mean, I had some ideas, but I didn't have proof of concept or any of those things.
Okay.
And so some of the loan officers were running live events, and I noticed that a lot of the people that were doing the events on their own, they were both basically teaching mortgage stuff and doing lunch and learns and kind of the old school strategy, but they were still having more success on average than people that weren't doing events.
Okay.
So we started promoting the events that way, and then just through my own marketing, I started creating some classes for lenders to teach. And again, we just noticed that realtors responded really well to the classes. And the biggest thing that makes the difference, I can't believe I'm going to tell you this out loud, but the biggest thing that makes the difference in the classes 100% is having the realtors do something in the class that gets them a result. Because oftentimes what happens.
Yeah, give me an example. Yeah.
So we have a strategy that we teach called the YouTube Quickie.
Okay.
And it's a way that somebody can rank a YouTube video on Google page 1 really fast.
Okay, cool.
And because it's for, let's say it's for a phrase or keyword that nobody else is going after, so there's no competition. So naturally, you're going to rank immediately, basically. Okay, so we have a class where a lender will invite realtors to come. They'll teach them the strategy. Hey, here's how the titles work and tags and descriptions and, some of the basics behind the scenes, where the realtors are like, I never knew that before, and then we go, hey, we're just going to do it right now. So you guys go ahead, partner up. Chris, you're going to shoot the video for Nick. Nick, you'll shoot the video for Chris. Come back when you're done. We help them put the video on YouTube during the class so that by the time they leave, their video is shot, uploaded, optimized based on what YouTube wants it to, be on the back for tags and all that. And oftentimes we position it as, hey, it usually takes like 24 hours for this to work. But we know it takes like 2.4 minutes, right? So that by the time the class is ending, we can go, hey, by the way, is anybody's video showing up yet? Right now, everybody's
And they
checking, and
check in. They're like, mine,
inevitably,
mine, mine. And they're like,
yeah,
oh,
inevitably
this is
somebody does,
working.
right? Yeah, and exactly. Now you go crazy, like, oh my God, this is crazy. I can't even believe that this is happening right now.
Yeah.
And so when you call the reason that I mention it now is that when you call a realtor, they didn't just go back to their normal life and never do anything with the information from the class because you forced action. Now, when you
Yes.
go, hey, Chris, man, thanks for coming to class last week. That was awesome. It was super cool that you got your video to rank. And you're like, yeah, it was. And, if I go, hey, by the way, that was, just like the tip of the iceberg of stuff I do to help people. I've got this little checklist. I'd love to go over it with you. Maybe see if there's some other ways I can help you out. Would you be opposed to jumping on a Zoom for 15 minutes?
Right.
Right. It's an easy yes for you.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of like the big piece of the strategy.
Well, that's really, really important because I think most people, when they host an event, right, or even when they're doing networking, it's like, okay, we're talking, we're getting to know each other. And that's important, right? That's kind of like the foundation, but you are actually delivering value in a very short amount of time. And I think agencies kind of forget about this. I know I do, that if you can get them a result like right away, the trust factor is going to go up. Like you've deposited probably 2 hours worth of trust tokens just right there in that 30-minute activity that you had them do. Like that's something that I think everybody needs to think about. It's like, what is an action that I can have my prospect take that's going to get them a result like now, not
For sure.
tomorrow, not in a week, now, especially if you're doing SEO, by the way. That's one of the biggest challenges I feel like SEO agencies have, is that we're selling the dream of in 6 months, you're going to be on page 1, right? Like what can we do that's going to get them a measurable result and get them excited now, right? That's really, really cool, man. Great job there.
Sure. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like you mentioned, yeah, exactly. So even just on an agency side, right, in a shorter window is like nowadays, sometimes it takes a few days minimum, if not maybe a week or more to get the compliance thing done inside of, if you're using high level or whatever CRM people are using. And even for us, we're like, we came up with a little mini, fast action stuff that they can do before the A2P gets approved. Because, same thing, right? Because somebody comes, they pay, and now they're waiting 7 or 10 days for the A2P to get done, and they're, they feel like they're burning their money. So some of those things is like, even within that time frame, how can you find fast results? One thing I love, even on an agency level, that's you can create very fast results for people, is getting a business more Google reviews. You can do that in one day. Like, so I'll just give it to you because I think it's awesome, and I love doing this for people. Is we do it, inside of our high level white label. But I mean, obviously you could do this with any software or manually, even you could do it. But we send a message that it's like, hey, Chris, hey, we're in a Google reviews contest, and that ends on Friday, and we really want to win. Would you do us a huge favor and drop a 5-star review here using words like this, or this really matter for the review? Super appreciate it, right? And then we just drop that link that Google gives you, where it's just a one-click review link. And on average, if we do that like as a mass automation kind of thing, over a few days, we're usually getting about 12% of the people that we ask to leave a Google review.
Wow, that's great.
Sometimes a little bit more, depending if the person is loved, versus liked. But some of that stuff, right, where like we can do some of that stuff in the background on the agency side of our stuff while we're waiting for their compliance pieces and all those things to be done. Because like you said, is with agencies, especially on the agency side, man, so many people have been burned.
Yes, everybody has been burned. Everybody has been burned. Yeah.
I remember our old English man one time, he told me, this British guy, he was like, man, never trust a man without a limp, right? It's like, well, we've all been burned some way, but also on it from an agency level, if you can show some fast results, like in those first 7 days when they're still super skeptical, they're scared, they think they're going to get burned again.
Buyer's remorse starts to set in, right? Like that happens every time. You can make
some really cool stuff happen in those first 7 days, like the Google reviews or some little basic stuff that you can help them with, that's just demonstrate value, and they go, man, see it now. I knew I made the right choice this time, and just kind of reinforce that. So I think, like you said, it's important to get some of those like early fast wins.
I love that, man. Well, this has been tremendous. We're just about out of time. I know that 30 minutes goes by really, really fast. What's the easiest way that somebody could follow you, or if they wanted to reach out to you and ask you questions or just pat you on the back for coming up with some great stuff, what's the easiest way that somebody could connect with you?
Yeah, well, my email is nick@legionofloanofficers.com. I'm most active on Facebook, Nick
Perfect.
Carpenter. I'm pretty easy to find on there, especially if you're at all involved in the mortgage industry. Then we probably have a bunch of mutual friends and connections and stuff. So really those two platforms. And then I put out a video every week on YouTube, youtube.com/NillaNickTV. It's my old rap name from when I was in my 20s and just never changed it. So, but yeah, so that's kind of like some of the places where I'm putting out some content and things like that.
I love it. Nick, thank you so much for coming on and sharing so much actionable knowledge with us. Really, really powerful. I appreciate you being on.
Yeah, thanks for the invite again, Chris. Appreciate it.
Awesome, man. And to all of my listeners, make sure that you check out Nick. And I'm telling you, the things that we talked about today, do them now. Like, put that on your list. If you're listening to this live and it's Thursday, put this on your list of things that you got to do on Monday. Okay. I promise you, it's very, very important that you do these things that he's doing. So thanks again for listening, everybody. We'll see you on the next episode. All right. Good work. Hey, thank you for listening. And if you enjoyed this episode, it would mean so much to me if you would subscribe to the podcast and also share it with friends, family, and basically anyone you know who will find the same value in this episode as you do. So, to get the latest from me, then let's connect on social media on the Facebooks at facebook.com or Instagram. Then you can also find us on LinkedIn, YouTube. Finally, go to our website where you can see all of our other episodes of Operation Agency Freedom. Register for live trainings on how to run a highly profitable agency, and you can see exactly how we help marketing agencies fix their operations and scale to 8 figures and beyond. Thanks again for listening, and I will see you next time.